Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our new edition of Civil Society in Times of COVID-19. This time we are going to discuss about a very interesting and intriguing and complicated country, which is not very far from Romania, it's just across the sea, basically, Azerbaijan. A country which, as I said, not only it's complicated because of the COVID-19 crisis like all of us, but it's also complicated because of its politics, because of the oil price, I would presume, because of its proximity to Russia and Iran, and because, last and not least, it has a very, very vibrant and very sophisticated civil society. To discuss the case of Azerbaijan, not only in the case of COVID-19 crisis, but in general, we have three wonderful speakers, three very active persons, civic activists and politicians in Azerbaijan. We have Ilgar Mammadov, who is the chairman of the Republican Alternative. We have Anar Mammadli, who is the chairperson of Election Monitoring and Democracy Studies. And we have the Şəhla İsmayıl, who is chairwoman of Women's Association for Rational Development. Thank you very much for making the time to discuss Azerbaijan with us. I will start with Ilgar, whom I haven't seen in ages, and I'm very, very happy to see him. Thank you for joining us, Ilgar. Just to give us a brief overview, and I do want everybody to be brief of the political and the social situation in Azerbaijan. But before I do this, I need to make a very, very small and brief housekeeping rule. You can see us, you can hear us, the speakers and the moderator. We cannot see you participants, nor can we hear you, but we can take your questions or comments on the Q&A section of Zoom. So at the bottom of the screen, you have the Q&A button. Please hit it and send questions or comments to us, and I will read them as they come in. You can also use the chat function, but I very much prefer that I don't have to split between the two. So stay with the Q&A button for the moderator. So Ilgar, tell us a little bit about what's going on in Azerbaijan in general and COVID-19 related as well.
Yes, Alina, thank you very much for this invitation. Yes, indeed, it has been ages, almost, yes, that we haven't met each other. The situation in Azerbaijan in general, I can describe in my introduction, and probably more focused to particular civil society concerns and developments can be provided in presentations of my esteemed colleagues, Anar and Şəhla. So in Azerbaijan's current situation in terms of political developments, I can describe as a post-election period. In the next 4 to 5 years, we don't have any elections scheduled except partial elections to be conducted in the constituencies which have been abolished, results in which has been abolished. So far there are 4 of them. There might be more in the future, but so no major elections are scheduled to take place between now and 2024 and probably 2025, unless there is a snap elections, but there is no indication that such kind of snap elections will happen soon. Another institutional mobilization tool for political party can be a referendum. There has been some rumors about possible referendum, constitutional amendment to amend constitution, but there is nothing in the behavior of the government that would suggest that such kind of referendum is expected. So as for a political party, it's a period during which it has to concentrate on its other issues other than election issues, such as structural development, policy development, and we are doing precisely that. At the past elections, we had 29 candidates for 100. Our party, I'm speaking about our party, we had 29 candidates in the ballot paper for 125 seats. And we have won more seats, of course, but the process has given us only 1 seat in the parliament, and we have become a parliamentary party, although not nominally. We are not registered. and we're seeking registration now. We're trying to conduct a congress. As I said, we are concentrating on the structural development, which will help us better prepare for the next election round. So we are preparing for Congress, and we are also trying to put in best use our presence in Parliament. Our representative, Erkin Gaderli, has become a member of Azerbaijani delegation at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So we have a voice there. And we will do our, and one of the first initiatives Erkin Gaderli has put during his speeches and presentations in Parliament at the parliamentary committees is the fundamental improving of the civil society legislation. So this initiative our party has put forward as probably the first step in its parliamentary activities. We are also discussing this matter with other government representatives, not only in Parliament. I will speak about that a bit later. So we want all those limitations which have been imposed on civil society after 2013 and even earlier, maybe. I'm not saying that in 2012 civil society situation in Azerbaijan was perfect. Everybody knows that there were problems. The problems that simply deteriorated after 2013. And the first thing Erkin Gaderli, our parliamentary representative, did in Parliament was to raise this issue. And we are very much after this issue. We will continue lobbying for it at different levels. Another important political development which keeps our party busy is the so-called dialogue, which has been initiated by President Aliyev right after the elections. We don't know the motives of the government in initiating this process, but we immediately accepted it because this will give us a platform to raise issues and see what happens then. As I said, there's no elections in the next 4 or 5 years, and we have to find and employ all the avenues which are offered to us by the political development. And in this respect, we immediately grabbed this opportunity. We engaged in active discussions. I have met several times with department chief of the presidential administration, who reports directly to President Aliyev, and I've raised a number of issues concerning Azerbaijan political system as well as civil society concerns. Reinforcing what Erkin Gaderli has been doing in Parliament regarding the conditions and legislation for the work of civil society.
Ilgar, let me ask you a question very, very briefly. How difficult is it to be a party in Azerbaijan, not a government party in Azerbaijan?
It is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. As I said, we do not have a registration, although we have applied for registration. The last time we applied to conduct a congress which will permit us to seek registration was 15th of December, and we were denied. It's very, very difficult. As we have faced all kind of repressions, we have faced all kind of limitations on our activities. Now we are trying to change that pattern by doing our parliamentary work and also responding to the calls of the government for dialogue. Actually, our calls came earlier, but well, it doesn't matter. So it's quite hard. And I must tell about the other side of this story. Not only concerning our political party, but other parties as well. In Azerbaijan, there are 50-something registered political parties. And 2 of them put forward extra conditions for when the President Aliyev initiated put forward his dialogue initiative. They set some conditions for the beginning of this dialogue. In particular, for instance, release of political prisoners. I think we have fundamental differences with those parties regarding approach to the dialogue. We believe that release of political prisoners can be an outcome of the dialogue rather than a condition, a prerequisite for that kind of dialogue. That is a fundamental difference. So we, in the absence of elections, in the absence of other institutional avenues which would help us as a political party influence government decisions and government policies, I think it is more wise to look at release of political prisoners as a possible outcome, especially if the government is so much persistent when it's speaking about the dialogue. So President Aliyev, during past 3 months, I don't know, he mentioned the word dialogue maybe 10 times in his public speeches, which has never been the case in the past. So let's grab this opportunity, we thought. The other two parties, Popular Front Party and Musavat Party, they put prerequisite conditions for the beginning of dialogue. I don't want to build this relationship, but as a matter of fact, a number of their activists have been arrested, detained, and charged, and sometimes with, in some instances, with criminal offenses. I don't know if there is a relationship between these two things when the government offers you a dialogue, and I'm not that informed to build that relationship, but it's a matter of fact that the two parties which have denied, in fact, the dialogue proposal by the government are subject to major limitations of their activities. And as a result, the number of people who has been recognized by civil society organizations and human rights activists as political prisoners have increased in the past. On the other hand, like last month, after 7 years of legal battle, I was acquitted by the Supreme Court of Azerbaijan. This is an incredible judicial victory because case at the European Court of Human Rights 3 times, and all actions by the government and in many cases by others have been postponed for so many times. But this time, and this coincided with, it happened at the background of the dialogue initiative. It's of the progress of the dialogue initiative. Again, I cannot build a direct relationship, I don't know, but 2 members of our, not only myself, 2 members of our party have been acquitted by the Supreme Court. Is that I can now run at parliamentary, at presidential elections, next presidential elections. I was, as you know, I was excluded from the presidential race of 2013 and 2018 as a result of arrest and imprisonment. Now I'm totally free, not only like physically free, I'm totally acquitted, and I can run for any office in this country. God knows what will happen in the next 4 or 5 years. I don't know, but this is the reality.
Fingers crossed that we can still see you in 3 or 4 years, and you win a seat at least. But talking about elections and also moving slowly to Corona, I want to turn to Anar, and you've been monitoring elections. You know election context in Azerbaijan in and out, I want to say. Well, do tell us a little bit about how these past elections at least were run, but also let's start talking slowly about the COVID-19 crisis and how this has affected, for now, let's talk about civil society, how this has affected the work of civil society. And then we'll talk about society at large as well.
Okay. Thank you, Alina. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for organizing such important webinar and talking about Azerbaijan in terms of the COVID-19 outbreak crisis in country. And concerning your questions, actually, I can summarize the concerning of the local challenges during COVID-19 outbreak in two spheres. First of all, civil society groups in Azerbaijan, they concern much more about social economic situation in country. Unfortunately, as a part of the global economic recession after COVID-19 outbreak, Azerbaijan economy, which is extremely dependent on oil revenues, also affected somehow. During the lockdown regime in the last 2 months, government tried to allocate social care packages for poor and unemployed people, but according to independent experts, the social allowance mechanism is not enough for adequate living standards of population. It is first concern of the civil society right now. Secondly, it's about, already Ilgar Mammadov mentioned about political pressure and repression against the political parties and political groups, civil society activists. Unfortunately, after enforcing of the quarantine regime in country in March, the Ilham Aliyev, the head of the state, he declared about the emergency situation in country, and also during his speech in Nowruz holiday, he said that the extraordinary measures against opposition within the campaign of combating COVID-19 outbreak will be launched. After his speech, immediately law enforcement institutions started political pressures against activists, including human rights defenders, journalists, and political social media activists in country. For example, 4 activists, Tawfik Yagublu, former political prisoner and political activist, Elçin Mammat, who is journalist and human rights activist, Said Bakuvi and Niameddin Ahmadov, who are members of Popular Front Party, were arrested on the basis of politically motivated criminal charges. So right now, more than 40 people detained or fined on administrative basis by police during the COVID-19 outbreak, which is second concerning issue for civil society groups. So coming back to election, snap election in Azerbaijan, I should say that there is no so much difference between previous election and current last parliamentary election in country. Unfortunately, OSCE ODIHR mission, which deployed in Azerbaijan, and local observer, and also the observation mission from Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe, they criticized election results, especially lack of freedom of association, freedom of expression, and freedom of assembly in country. I should mention that, for example, during this election campaign after 2010 election, it is first time in the history of Azerbaijan, there were no political debates between opposition groups and ruling party members. And last time Azerbaijan audience, they watched or just joined the political debates between ruling party and opposition groups in 2010 election. So during last 10 years, there is no debate. There is no such a the important political space that opposition candidates from Real Party, from Musavat, from different political groups can easily to talk about on certain issues, local concern issues or national concern issues, foreign policy issues, domestic policy of the government through TV debates, through public TV or through different TV channels. Unfortunately, this space occupied by government, so there is no space for such campaign during election period. Regarding the character of the election process, of course, we observe a lot of irregularities, including falsification of election results. And I'm sure that after this election, many candidates will apply to European Court of Human Rights on violation of the election rights. So I remember that until now we have more than 20 judgments adopted by European Court for Human Rights on violation of election rights in Azerbaijan. Since 2005 election, 2010 election, many candidates apply on violation of the election rights in Azerbaijan. So this election actually is not so much different than previous election, but of course in terms of this election, I should also mention that the first time the history of Azerbaijan social media was actively involved to this process. Many candidates, I remember that many opposition candidates, independent candidates, they use Facebook and YouTube as the communication tool for reaching their voters. It was one of the positive aspects of the election. Second thing, I think young generation actively involved. Many candidates were able to recruit the young people as a volunteers, as a campaigner during the election period. However, I think the reaction of the governments, the political behavior of the government, unfortunately, is the same. There is no positive change in terms of the government's or ruling political elites' behavior on election campaign period. So I'm a little bit skeptic about the future of the country because of the ongoing political repression. Already Ilgar Mammadov mentioned about the number of the political prisoners. Yes, he is absolutely right that there is dramatically increase on the number of the political prisoners. For example, January session of the Parliamentary Assembly already adopted the resolution on political prisoner issues in Azerbaijan. I think Azerbaijan right now among Council of Europe countries is in second place on the number of the political prisoners after Turkey.
Let me stop you here because I do want to turn to Şəhla as well. I understand all the difficulties which are being placed on civil society, not only by the COVID-19 crisis, but also by the political situation. However, Şəhla, I do want to ask you about the activities in such a tight space, in such a very complicated space. What are the activities of civil society in times of COVID-19 crisis? And what occupies more time and space of a civil society activist? Fighting the COVID-19 crisis or fighting the political situation in the country?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me just join my colleagues in thanking for the overall initiative. I think that's a very timely initiative as such, and it's very important to keep us connected with the international community and make us raise our voices as well as concerns. So thank you for this. Well, let me, before answering your question, let me first remind the dear audience that we in Azerbaijan have been in the crisis as a civil society since early 2014, when the legislation has completely changed, legislation regulating the registration, operation, and funding of NGOs in Azerbaijan. It has completely been changed, and due to this changed legislation, of course, the organizational capacities, the financial viability, infrastructure, advocacy, public image, service provision, all the dimensions of civil society sustainability have been affected tremendously, putting us basically in the bottom of the list when the indexes of the kinds are being measured, are being there. So since I authored the Civil Society Sustainability Index since 2014 to 2017, I can tell that in that very period of the crackdown, Azerbaijan was at the very bottom, and we were receiving 6 out of 7 possible scores, and the bigger the score is, the worse the situation is. So basically, the civil society has already been affected by that crisis, by that crackdown. But with COVID, of course, that's completely new, changed context, and more aggravation has come, and we have heavily felt all these, lacks of space and shrinking space in COVID times in a double situation. What I want to say is that basically the civil society, which was not ready, I mean, entire world, of course, was not ready for this crackdown and for this COVID, but the world could easily rehabilitate the work and switch to teleworking and, switch to online working, while the civil society in Azerbaijan, which was having the damaged infrastructure, including the old and torn equipment and outdated equipment, which was not compatible with most of the communication channels and platforms, could not easily join, and there was a moment when the civil society was mostly isolated. I can show it on the example of the civil society, the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum. I'm since 1st of May, I'm the coordinator of this platform in Azerbaijan, and we have already started the assessment of the 71 organizations which are members of Azerbaijani National Platform. The assessment results and findings are not ready yet, but at this very stage we have already distinguished the weaknesses of the member organizations. And one of them is, of course, this equipment, the lack of equipment and lack of possibility to join and continue the work online. And for this, I also want to underline that this Azerbaijan National Platform is actually uniting the strongest NGOs in Azerbaijan. So what about the regional NGOs? What about all those which are under double, disadvantaged situation? When it comes to the specific situation on our work, that NGOs in all the countries globally, they are participating very actively in prevention and response to COVID situation, including at the level of awareness raising, monitoring, reporting. They are fulfilling very important watchdog function. Well, in Azerbaijan, that was missing a lot because we were, again, as affected as everyone else. Plus, we had this extra burden for the crackdown previously started since 2014. In addition, we were having very little possibility and resources for making the monitoring and providing the additional information, alternative information on how bad or how good the situation is. So basically, the only information available on COVID and the responses was the information provided by the government, which was good, but we didn't have any alternative. That's why there was practically zero possibility to, verify or, double check or provide again the watchdog role. Yet another point was, if, for example, the civil society could be contributing to this process, one of the substantial inputs could have been the prevention of the distribution of fake information, which was plenty in this time. And so far, I know almost in all the countries, including the Eastern Partnership Eastern Partnership countries, there are such initiatives of anti-fake, websites and anti-fake initiatives. In Azerbaijan, we didn't have anything. That's why, unfortunately, there was a period when it was really very hard to distinguish where the true information is, where the fake information is. And there were a lot of rumors, which was causing a lot of stress, extra burden, and extra psychological, depression. Overall, in COVID times, the population was quite also obsessed, I would say, massively, because although the government has allocated quite a big amount of money, 2.5 billion, but with all the current problems of corruption and lack of good governance, it is very hard to track to what extent this money was allocated in the right track. Plus the one-time assistance or the assistance to the needy population, to the entrepreneurs, they were quite substantial, but they were not sufficient. I mean, in the volume, per person, that was not proportionate to the need of the population. It was not proportionate to the food basket of average Azerbaijani citizen. With that to say, the level of the external aid in Azerbaijan was very little in comparison to other Eastern Partnership countries. Just for the comparison, European Union has allocated Azerbaijan 40 million euro for these COVID measures, while, for example, just for comparison, Armenia received 92 million euro, and Georgia received 183 million euro. So, as you can see, the level of Azerbaijan support was much smaller. And one of the reasons of that certainly is the situation with the civil society, because the absorption capacity and the capacity of the civil society as such is not there for already 6 years.